Hello, welcome to Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is Thursday night. It's game week 6, and we're going to preview all of the Premier League fixtures this weekend, including Newcastle, Man City, Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea, Brighton, Everton, Crystal Palace, Forest, Fulham, Wolves, Liverpool, Ipswich, Villa, Man United, the Scum, Bournemouth, Southampton. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is your Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, lads. We're going to cover all of those games and save the best one to last. We're going to save the Arsenal Leicester game till the very end. You see how I done that, Trevor? Was that cool or was that smooth or what?
Yeah, you just about pulled it off, my son.
I knew you were going to kill me because I hadn't mentioned it. I thought, he's going to kill me. Be gentle with me and Dan. We're full of cold. I think we caught pneumonia courtesy of Avanti West Coast because the train was bloody leaking and everything, Dan, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It's just flashed back to me. That was. Well, I'm sipping on my Lemsip, so don't laugh at me tonight. It's not quite the beer that you've.
My San Miguel. I'm all right.
Probably a bit cooler than I am for the first time in your life, Fergus. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, you would.
Listen, we've got this photo that we can always refer to. Yeah, best buddies. Listen, we are going to go through all the games. We've got the first kickoff is 12:30. Newcastle versus Man City. It's Abu Dhabi versus Saudi Arabia. Trevor, Newcastle have won just one of the last 33 Premier League games against Manchester City, drawing 5, losing 27. 21 a 2-1 home win in January 2019 under Benitez is Newcastle's last victory. What's your thoughts on this game? Should be a bit of a cracker.
You've only got to mention Man City, and I'm nearly off. I'm saving it. It'll come. I'm not doing it at the moment, though. Man City away at Newcastle, right? Look, I saw it on the telly today. Look at their record with Rodri. Look at their record without Rodri. They've got no Rodri. They ain't winning. Newcastle are not. Man City will not win at Newcastle. They will go up there. Newcastle will be up for it, and Man City don't win this game. I'm certain.
As we know, Man City are on a 26-game unbeaten run, winning 23, drawing 5. John Stones kept that going in the 98th minute winner, a gutting, deflected, dodgy goal against us on Sunday. Dan, what's your thoughts on this fixture?
Could be a bit like eBay, couldn't it? Really, highest bidder wins, but who knows with these two, with all the money they've got going in. I'm a little bit. I'm with Trev on this one. To be honest, yeah, I actually can't see Man City winning this game. I think Rodri is such a massive influence on that team. My only sort of caveat to that is Newcastle, I think, have not been fantastic so far this season, but normally at home in big games, they do step it up. They've got a few players coming back. I think Tonali in midfield is a big influence for them. And yeah, just interesting to see how Man City do without Rodri. I think that's going to hopefully affect them for the remainder of the season. So I've gone 2-2 on this one.
Gone 2-2. I've gone 2-1 to Man City. I take what you say about Rodri, and I think it'll be a huge miss. It'll be really interesting. They've gone. Man City have scored in each of the last 31 games against Newcastle, the longest scoring streak for any one team in the competition's history. Trevor, what's your prediction on it?
I'm going with Adam. I'm going for a 1-1 draw, Fergus. Listen, people out there watching, don't forget, get your scores in. It gives us something to talk about. Put your scores for each game in the comments column, and we can talk about them when it crops up. But I'm with Adam on this one, Ferg. I'm going for a 1-1 draw.
And sorry, what did you say, Dan? Did you give it a Newcastle win, though? Did you?
No, 2-2.
2-2. So 2 draws and a win. We've got the other ones. We'll publish up what the other boys have said as well afterwards. We'll stick that up on Twitter and on Facebook for you. Next is the 3 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday. Arsenal play Leicester in that bunch of fixtures. We'll talk about that after we've talked to everybody of all the other games, because we want to go into a little bit more detail on the Arsenal game. The first one we're going to look at is a London derby for Brentford versus West Ham. Brentford have won won 4 of the last 5 home games against West Ham, drawing 1 and winning all 3 against them in the Premier League. West Ham have lost 3 of the 5 Premier League games this season, but remain unbeaten at home, winning 1 and unbeaten away from home, winning 1 and drawing 1. Dan, what's your thoughts on this? West Ham, I thought they really spent well in the summer, and they're looking a proper shocker at the minute.
Yeah, I'm surprised, if I'm honest. West Ham's one of the teams that I actually thought would have a very, very good season. I think I said a few weeks ago on the podcast, depends how quick they settle, but I feel like they have a good season based on how they bought. But there's always a risk, right, when you get rid of a manager that's so condensed and set with his sort of defensive tactics as Moyes was, to then come to a manager that wants to play a lot more open. It's always going to take a bit of getting used to, and they've got a lot of new players that need to bed in. They've just looked a bit off the boil with the last couple of weeks, which I think will be a worry for West Ham fans. And they're coming up against a side who, for me, have been fantastic without Ivan Toney, and even the little injuries they've had recently with like Wisser and Mbeumo, etc., going off injured in a few games. They've looked like a decent outlet, and I think they've probably established themselves a lot more now without Toney. And I think it will probably benefit them not to have near enough a star man in their team, and they've got 11 players that just work hard. So I can't see West Ham winning this game, I think, at the minute. So I've gone 3-1 Brentford.
3-1 Brentford. Trevor, Jared Bowen has scored more league goals against Brentford than any other side in his career. He scored 7 and netted a hat-trick against the Bees in the 4-2 victory last season. How do you see this one going yourself?
Well, do you know what? Sort of on a similar vein to what Dan said, I've been calling West Ham out as not going to have a good season all season, but I can see there's signs there that they can pick it up, and I think they're going to do all right at Brentford this weekend. Brentford are a really strong side at home, as we know. That it's becoming a little bit of a fortress, is Brentford at times. But I think the West Ham are going to do all right there this weekend. I don't think either side will win. I've gone for another 2-2 draw, Ferg. I can't pick a winner between the pair of them.
Yeah, I've gone the same. I've got a 1-1 draw in this case, but I think we've all gone for a draw for that game. Well, thankfully, we'll be watching our game at that time, so we won't have to pick this as a 3 o'clock kickoff to watch, because I don't think it is. Another 3 o'clock kickoff is Chelsea versus Brighton after a run of 5 Premier League games without a win against Brighton, drawing 3 and losing 2. Chelsea did double over the Seagulls last season. Trevor, Chelsea are starting to look like they're coming together a bit, aren't they? And Brighton unbeaten this season as well. So 2 good teams. This could be a corker.
Yeah, I didn't expect Chelsea to go as well as they have, Ferg. I really thought that with everything that was being talked about at the start of the season, and with all the players they had and the bit of turmoil, I didn't think Chelsea would show at all. But they have shown okay. And that bloke that couldn't score a goal for Toffee last season, Nicholas Jackson, has suddenly started banging the ball in the back of the net, and I think that's been really important for him. But having said that, as you just said, Ferg, rightly so, Brighton are a very, very good side this season. I mean, they took a point at the best side in the world, didn't they? They got a draw at the Emirates this year, So, and that's not easy to do. So, I've gone for another draw, Ferg. Another draw. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I think there'll be goals in it because Chelsea can score, but Brighton can score as well. Welbeck's in fine form, isn't he? He's banging a few goals in. So I've gone for another 2-2 draw, Ferg.
Dan, Brighton are only one of 4 sides unbeaten in the Premier League this season. Going into this weekend, they've drawn the last 3, only 1-2. They've never gone 6 games unbeaten in any campaign. But you can't call it. Can you call it?
No, to be honest, that's sort of why I've sat on the fence a bit and gone for a draw. I mean, honestly, when I looked at the fixture, first thing I thought was Chelsea win, because they've surprised me as they've surprised a lot of people this season. I think they'll have a better season this season than what we sort of thought initially and what people are giving them credit for. But Brighton are a very good side. And I think between these two, the last 5 games they've played, it's been a goal between them in the last 5. So I don't think it will be a huge win for either side if it is a win. But just because of that is why I've gone for a draw for 2-2. But there's parts of both sides I think that can improve. Brighton still not the best at sort of taking their chances and scoring goals. It's helped with Welbeck being in form, but I think João Pedro's got a little bit of a niggle, so I don't know if he'll play in this game. And still, for me, I know Nicholas Jackson's scored a few goals lately, but to me, he's still more Michael Jackson than Nicholas Jackson. He ain't very good up top for me. I'm not a big fan, so I've gone 2-2.
I'm not a huge fan, but it's because of Jackson, and also having Sancho as well, and Palmer, I think, is a great forward line that they've got. Jackson's been involved in 13 goals in the last 13 games. He's scored 9 and 4 assists. It's more than he did in 27 games previously with the similar sort of 9 goals, 3 assists. So for that reason, I've gone for 3-2 to Chelsea, the home side. I think home advantage will make a bit of a difference, but I expect it's going to be a cracker of a game and it's going to be on early on a match of the day.
It's interesting you say about home advantage. I actually can see Chelsea getting more points this year away from home than at home, because I remember a few years ago, even at the Emirates, when people came to the Emirates at times, there was tension from the fans, and sometimes going away from home can actually just leave you being a bit more free from all of the hassle you get from the fans. And Chelsea fans are not happy with Chelsea, obviously quite rightly, the last few years, which is great to see. But they get a lot of stick at home, and I can just see these players maybe bedding in more away from home.
I think you got a point. I think if Brighton can hit them early on the break, I think then it could turn to Stamford Bridge. But if Chelsea get an early goal, then I think Chelsea probably will go on to win it. It's a really difficult one to call. Really difficult one to call. Yeah. Trevor, we're looking at Everton versus Crystal Palace. Everton have lost both their Premier League home games so far this season. Only 4 times in the history have they ever lost 3 home games in a single league campaign. As you know, Goodison Park is a challenging place to go for any team. Arsenal have struggled there year after year. Last year was the first time in a long time that we actually got a result up there. How do you see this one going?
Well, I honestly think this is a massive, massive indicator of how the season is going to pan out for these two sides. I was up in the Northwest last weekend before we went to Manchester City, and I was talking to an Everton fan, and an older Everton fan, a wise Everton fan, and he wasn't in the slightest bit worried that Everton would be relegated this season. He wasn't in the slightest bit worried. I didn't share his confidence. I was worried for him, but I like Everton. Then I looked at this game a little bit, and I thought, wow, this could be massive now, because Everton keep taking the leading games. They're scoring goals, Everton, but they keep giving more goals away than they score, right? And Palace haven't won a game yet this season, and they're going to Everton. So if Everton score their goals, can they hang on against Palace? I think that whoever wins this game is a massive indicator for who's going to finish below the other one. And this early in the season, I seriously mean that. I think that Everton are going to win the game. I shouldn't really say I hope, but I have got a soft spot for Everton. I think that Everton are going to win the game. I think they're going to score more goals than Palace. I've gone for a 2-1 win to Everton, and I think it'll be a massive indicator of what way Everton, especially Everton's season, is going to go. They can't afford to lose a game like this.
No, they can't. They can't. Look, they're winless in the last 6 Premier League games, drawing 1, losing 5, despite taking the lead, as Trevor said, in 4 of those matches. Crystal Palace also remain winless in the Premier League. The last 3 games have been a draw. It's amazing that Trevor said this is a huge battle to find out who's going to finish above who. And we talked about our game last weekend at City, that, you know, the winner of that game could almost say, I think they're probably the most favourite to go on to win the title. These battles, we're only 6 weeks in. These battles is showing how tight the league are in all the different sections.
I think it's way too early to be looking at that for these two teams, if I'm honest. I'm very shocked, lads, with both of these teams of how they started, because form at the end of last season, they were both in great form. Like Palace were a pick for me to have a cracking season this season as well. Everton looked like they'd been a lot more solid at the back end of last season. And then they've come out both this season very much out of form, but we are only 5-6 games into a season. You know, things change very quickly. This isn't a game, I think, that normally has too many goals. I think we've seen maybe a little bit of an indication of a bit of a turn for both of these teams recently. I mean, Everton unlucky to lose their lead, I think, as well recently. That can't keep happening for me. And the same as Palace, the last couple of games, second half against Man United, I thought was a lot better for them. It looked a lot more dangerous. Looked like we're getting players like Eze back into form and Mateta up top, who, for me, Palace are a great side. I'd be surprised if they continue like this for much longer. I just look at these two teams at the minute and think, can't pick a winner. Don't think there's going to be many goals. So went for 1-1. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was a 1-0 winner or a 0-0.
Yeah, I thought similar, and I actually went for a 1-1 as well. I didn't think you see it as a high scoring game, but I did toy with 1-0 either way as well. But I hung my hat on 1-1. The next game is Forest. They host Fulham. Forest coming up off a good victory at Anfield, and then 1-0 at Anfield. Where have I got here? Yeah, Forest have won the exact figure of this exact fixture 3-1 last season, ending a run of 4 straight league defeats to Fulham. Fulham, there was an interesting stat I had here on Fulham, and it's bloody gone now. Yeah, only Man City, Spurs, and Liverpool have had more shots on target in the Premier League this season than Fulham. City had 36, Spurs 35, Liverpool 34, and Fulham had 28. An average of 5.6 shots per target. Obviously, it's the Arsenal B team, Dan. How do you see Arsenal B doing against against Forest? And especially with managers under a little bit of pressure by the home fans as well.
They're Arsenal B at home, but I think they're Arsenal C or Arsenal D away from home, because they're not a great side for them away from home. So much so, I think they lose on penalties in the cup to Preston, who we've drawn. So I'm not sure with Fulham away from home, and for that reason, I just feel like Forest will get something from this game. Another team that shocked me a bit recently, I didn't expect Forest to start as well this season. I don't think anyone really thought they'd get a win at Anfield. So fantastic effort to get a win there from any club, really. We know how difficult it is travelling to Anfield. I just feel like Forest have started well, and I think they'll continue in that vein. I just feel like there's something in Fulham that will get them a point in this game, because that, even aside from Smith Rowe and Iwobi, they've had what's his name, Jimenez up top has come in recently instead of Muniz starting the last couple of games. He's looked quite sharp. I just don't see him keeping a clean sheet away to Forest. So go 1-1.
Trevor, Fulham are Forest's bogey team, really. Fulham have won more league games against Nottingham Forest than they have any other opponent in the league history. They've won 42 times. They've won 8 out of the last fixtures against Forest as well. So, can you see Fulham turning their form up for away from home for once?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and Dan just mentioned Forest's result at Liverpool, and as we all know, Liverpool have really surprised. Well, it surprised me this season. I didn't expect Liverpool to start off as they did, and for Forest to go to a team in form and come away with the 3 points was a massive, massive result. Not just for the points in the league table, but I would imagine for the confidence of the players as well. However, I think Fulham have spent well. They've got all our players that we didn't want. They've got 1 or 2 that I wish we'd kept. And I think it's a really close game. You can make a case for Forest, but you can also make a case for Fulham because they'll score goals. So I've gone with Dan. I can't pick a winner again, Ferg. I've gone with Dan for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I've actually gone Fulham. I think Fulham are really good at the minute, and I think they've been a surprise side along with Brighton, and I've gone for a Fulham win 3-1. As Trevor said earlier, put your scores in the chat, your score predictions in the chat, because it's really good to know what you guys are thinking as well. And if you are watching on Twitter, make sure you do jump across to YouTube, click the like and subscribe button. It will really help us out quite a bit. Next, we've got Wolves versus Liverpool. Wolves have lost more Premier League games against Liverpool than have any other opponent, 16. They've lost 14 of the last 15 games against the Reds. And Trevor, can you see them turning that tide and maybe getting a second win against Liverpool?
No, I can't, Ferg. Even after Liverpool's hiccup against Forest, they've just been playing too well, and the manager's hit the ground running, hasn't he? and I'm sure he will have reminded them that performance against Forest wasn't acceptable. And I think that Liverpool are going to win comfortably at Wolves. To be honest, I don't see anything in Wolves that would make me think they could get anything from the game. And I've gone for a 2-0 win to Liverpool, and I think I'm being cautious with my result there. It could well be more.
Change of manager for Liverpool. They had Arne Slot or Slot. Let's just go Slot, because I can see Dan just giggling at whatever way I'm going to pronounce it. They've won 5 of their 6 fixtures. They lost the one that we talked about, the Forest. If you look at, they've kept clean sheets in those games, and in the previous 10 games, they'd conceded 16 goals under the last reign of Klopp. How do you see this going? Wolves have been woeful this season. I thought they played well against us, but after that, they've just got worse and worse.
Yeah, honestly, I think you're spot on. I worry about Wolves. I think Wolves, if any of the 3 teams that's come up have a good season, I think Wolves could be in trouble. And they just can't stop conceding goals. I think, is it 14 or 15 goals they've conceded so far this season? They can't shut up shop. And then they go into a team in Liverpool that have got great attacking players, score goals for fun. If Liverpool's forwards have an off day, they can pretty much rotate and change all 3. So I'd be very, very surprised if Liverpool don't get quite a few goals here. And then on the flip side, people talk about the Arsenal defence and how good that is. Liverpool's only conceded 1 goal in the league this season. So they've started very, very well. And I think it probably just had a shock result. I don't think it's going to be something that continues to Liverpool. I think it will be, the one of very few that they actually do drop points in early in the season. I don't think Liverpool will have that good a season where they push on at the end of the season. I think they'll have a little drop off midway through, but I do think they're going to start the season very well. Wouldn't be surprised to see them very, very close, or if not at the top after sort of 9-10 games. So I've gone 3-0 Liverpool there, and I can quite easily see that turn into 4 or 5 if they score a couple of early goals.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've gone with the same scoreline. I've gone 3-0, and I do think Liverpool are possibly one of those dark horses, definitely a top 3 contender, and possibly even pushing for the title along with ourselves and City. So I quite like the manager. I don't think he's as arrogant and as in your face as Klopp. And I think where Liverpool might come unstuck is they didn't get their man that they wanted in the transfer window. It didn't replace that number 6, and I think that might cost them later in the season when they have that drop off that you talked about, Dan. Sunday kickoffs. The early kickoff is Ipswich versus Villa. Ipswich have just won one of their 10 Premier League games against Villa. They drew 2 and lost 7. The last away win was in March 1994 when my daughter was born. Christ, it was a 1-0 win away at Villa Park. Dan, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, do you know what? I don't think it's as easy to predict as everyone thinks, if I'm honest. I think Ipswich have actually dug in a bit more than I ever expected them to do at the start of the season. And on the flip side, you've got an Aston Villa side who is getting into the Champions League campaign, and we all know how that can affect teams. And look, so far it hasn't with Villa, and to be honest, their 3-0 away win in Europe was a fantastic win for them on a very tough pitch and tough place to go. I just think it will catch up with them eventually, but perhaps this fixture has been a bit kinder to them to have it earlier on around the time when they're kicking off their Champions League campaign. And at the minute, you've seen Watkins sort of coming back into form. And if by any chance he doesn't, they seem to bring on a super sub in Duran at the minute who seems to be able to get goals. And they've got so many options in Villa. And you have to give credit to the manager. Trev, you've said a few times how much of a big fan you are of his. I'm not as much of a big fan as you are, but you have to give him credit with what they've done with the team and the squad he's built, the rotations that they can do, playing in multiple competitions. And that's a reason why they're back up there again. So I've gone 3-1 Villa just because current form, I can't see them dropping off yet at the minute. But I don't think it'll be an easy 3-1, if that makes sense. I think it might be something where Ipswich are in it for quite a part of the game and maybe Villa get a late goal to seal it.
Trevor, Ipswich have failed to win any of the 5 opening Premier League matches, drawing 3, losing 2. I think against Villa, who, as you have said and Dan has said, and you've said on several times, under Unai Emery have just grown from strength to strength to strength. I can see nothing. I predicted 4-1 to Villa. I can see nothing but an away win for Villa.
Well, the form all points to Villa, doesn't it? And I've thought about it this afternoon, this game, and I can't go against the form. I can't find a reason to think that Ipswich will win a home game against Villa. They've drawn 3, but they've lost 2. Nothing is special. They've done nothing special. They're a battling side, I reckon. Ipswich. I don't know much about them, but Villa, as Dan just mentioned, we all know what I think of Unai Emery and how classy he is. He's got Villa purring again, and although they've got lots of fixtures coming up, I can't see him getting challenged in this game. I think it'll be tight. I don't think Villa will score a lot of goals because Villa haven't been firing on all cylinders up front, as Dan just mentioned, But I still think that Villa will be good enough to beat Ipswich. I've gone for a 1-0 win to Villa when in my head I'm saying I should have gone for more, really. But I've gone for Villa to win 1-0, Ferg.
Okay. Quick question to you, Trev, on Villa. What's a successful season for Villa in their first season back in the Champions League this year?
Oh, I think looking solely at the league, I would say getting back in the top 4 again. I can see no reason why they shouldn't be back in the top 4. Although, if I'm honest, I didn't expect Chelsea to be going so well. I didn't expect Liverpool to be going so well. So it's going to be a challenge for them to be up there. But I think top 4 would be a consistent season, and then whatever happens in the Champions League. And I'm going to bleat on about him a little bit again. Emery's best record is in European competitions. He gets his teams playing their best football in European competitions. So I'm really interested to see how Villa do in the Champions League.
They're not good enough to get to quarterfinal, semi-final, finals, are they?
Look, all they'll be thinking about doing at the moment, right? All Villa will be thinking about doing at the moment is getting in the top 16 in that Champions League. That's all they'll be thinking of doing. That's all I'm thinking about us doing as an Arsenal fan. Then it starts getting more interesting, and we have playoffs and we have knockout rounds, and that's when the real Champions League. At the moment, it's the European Super League through a back door. So let's get this first round of games out of the way, and let's see the real Champions League kick in. I would imagine that Emery is thinking we get top 16, then we either have a playoff. If we get top 8, we're through to the next round and see where it goes from there. But I can't see him not being in the top 16 in that Champions League.
Top 24. Top 24. For me, answering your question, sorry, the top 24, because the top 8 automatically go through to the last 16.
Sorry, excuse me.
And then 9 to 24 playoff. And for me, I think if Villa got into that 24 would be a positive. They could get into the last 16. That would be a huge season for them. 1, financially, and 2, just what they would achieve. In the league, I think if they re-qualify for Europe, I wouldn't say the Europa Conference, I'd say even the Europa League, and getting into the top 24 in the Champions League, I would say that shows us progress. I think they're going to have a little bit of a dip off because of European football. It is going to take its toll. The Cups, I think they might even put the Cups a little bit on the back burner to a certain degree because it's the squad, isn't it, Dan?
Well, that was sort of what I was thinking with the Cups for me. Like a successful season for me with Villa is definitely getting back in the Champions League, but to be honest, I can't see it. So for me, if they get to the latter stages of the Champions League, bring in revenue for the club, have some big nights for the fans, I can't see them going too deep into the competition, but I think they can get into the knockout round, might even get beyond that, depending on who they get drawn against. But if I was a Villa fan, I'd be hoping that they don't rest too many players in the Cups, because I know there's lots of games and they have to rotate and they want to go big in the Champions League, but I would be tempted not to rest too much in the Cups, because I think Villa could be an outside favourite to lift one of those Cups if they go full strength throughout the competition. I think there's a couple of those competitions that would be there for the taking. I think you will see Man City rotate in the League Cup because of how many games there are. I think we saw last night with Arsenal that will happen. So League Cup could be a very, very big competition for a team like Villa to win. FA Cup, a little bit more difficult. I think teams will go stronger, but even having said that, Villa have the capability to win against any team on their day. So I'd be surprised if they throw one of those competitions, because I think that could be a successful season for them. Get into Europe, maybe not the Champions League, get to the latter stages, but there comes a time when you have to win things. And if Emery's going to change my opinion, I think he has to win something.
That's interesting. I'll tell you what, if I was a Villa fan, I would be the most optimistic I ever could be right now. I would have been optimistic many years ago under Randy Lerner, but he then lost interest. I think the current owners and the managers and the whole focus of that club is going in the right direction. I'm not sure if they're necessarily keeping the fans in that, because they're not. I'm speaking to some Villa fans, and they're not very happy about being charged £94 on top of their season ticket to go to a group stage game.
Welcome to our world, Villa fans.
Yeah, but our first four are including our season ticket, but their season tickets are £700. Our season tickets are £1,000. So it's probably equal, Trevor. You're very right. Welcome to our world. The next game is the late kickoff on Sunday. It's the 4:30. It's Man United versus the Scum, Tottenham. Manchester United, Trevor, have lost 7 of the last 19 Premier League games at home, winning 9 and drawing 3, including a 3-0 loss to Liverpool last month. Previous to that, they've been unbeaten for 20 games at Old Trafford, winning 17 and drawing 3. You've got family who are up that way and are United fans. How are you feeling, and how are they feeling about this game? And they'll know how you want. You'll be so much a United fan tomorrow.
They're crazy Man United fans, they are, Fergus. I admire their commitment to Man United Football Club, my in-laws' family. And to be honest with you, it's strange because I'm not picking up that they've got too much problem with Ten Hag staying on. I thought I was going to hear loads of noise about Ten Hag being given a new contract, and I didn't at the start of the season, but I am starting to hear a little undercurrent now that they were expecting a bit more from him. He's got the players that he signed in there now. He's talking a great game, but he always seems to make an excuse after the game, Ten Hag, I think that Man United have bought have paid 100 million for possibly the worst player I've ever seen paid 100 million for in Anthony. They're all nobody rates him that I know of. And their defence is poor. There's no doubt about it. Their defence is poor, Manchester United, So they need to come up against a team that doesn't offer a lot up top. And from what I saw with Tottenham against the Arsenal, Tottenham, even at home with a raucous crowd behind them, albeit at times a disappointed crowd, at home they didn't offer a lot to try and beat the Arsenal when we played there. I thought that we had a 1-0, we had a goalkeeper in form, we had a defence in form, and we weren't going to lose that game, So then I think right now, what happens with them two sides? One ain't very good up front. One could do with better defence, and you think what's going to happen? So the only thing I can go with is home advantage. So I think it's going to be. It's going to be a close one. I think that they're both average sides at best this season. I really do. And I'm not saying that just because everybody knows I can't stand the word Tottenham, but they really are going to be a well-matched couple of sides. Off the top, higher mid-table teams this season. So I've been quite reserved with my thoughts about this game, Ferguson. I've been quite reserved about the result I'm going to choose. So I've just gone for a 4-0 to Man United.
Okay, Dan, can you imagine if he really hates the word Tottenham? When he used to have to get the bus home when he was a kid, and he had to go, "Can I have a 25p ticket, Mister, to such a road in Tottenham?"
Berg,
it's been awful.
Berg, it was a 3p ticket.
Since picking up 14 points in the first 6 Premier League away games under Postecoglou, winning 4 and drawing 2, losing none. Tottenham have picked up a further 14 points in the last 15 games on the road, only winning 3, losing 7 and drawing 5. It's the fewest away games that they've won fewer away games since November than Spurs. They've only won 3. Sorry, that doesn't come out right. But basically, it's what we were saying before about Postecoglou. He started.
We definitely didn't say any of what you just said, Fergus. I don't know what you just said.
But he started really brightly, and people were. He had Manager of the Month and won the league by August last year. And he looks like a bit under pressure. He struggled against Coventry. Brentford scored a goal against him in 23 seconds. Where do you see this one going? Because they're both, as Trevor said, struggling sides.
It's for me, it's quite a predicament because it's a battle of wits of both teams that I can't stand and hate for various reasons. Spurs for very obvious reasons that no one likes them, but I, like Trevor, have got family that support Man United, but Trevor obviously thinks a lot more of his family than I do, so I can't bloody stand Man United, and I hope they lose as well. I wish I could pick both of them to lose if I had a choice, but unfortunately I can't. So I try to be a little bit unbiased and go based on footballing reasons, as opposed to head or heart. But
I don't believe what's coming here.
Oh no, hang on. Listen, Trev, if you know me at all, you know it ain't going to go 3 points to the away side.
Bookmark this 35 minutes in.
If you look at those teams, right, Spurs at home are a much, much better side than they are away from home. Away from home, they might nick something, but they look a very, very poor side. They don't even look mid-table. They look lower league table away from home. So they look where they deserve to be. And I think they're an overrated team, as I've said all along. I think they will look good on paper at times, but they're not a great side. You look at Man United, and I actually don't think they've done too bad in the market. I think Mazraoui is a decent enough player from Munich, as is De Ligt. I don't think they're world beaters that are ever going to take them back to winning top competitions like the Champions League, but an improvement in what they had. I think Ugarte in midfield will be a step up on Casemiro. Looks like he's lost his legs. And then you've got to look at, can some of their attacking players get back into form? Bruno is a little rat, but he's an okay player. And if Rashford gets back into form, they'll score a few goals. I think Xerxes is a half-decent player. I'm a bit surprised, though, because I don't think he's too much better than Højlund. But overall, if I had to pick a better side, I think it's Man United out of the two. But because I don't really like either of them, I've gone for 1-1.
Yeah, I've got Man United supporters in the family. Both my brothers are Man United fans, and you've met them as well, and they don't half wind us up. We've even got a Man United versus Arsenal WhatsApp group, Trevor, with me and my brother and yourself. The Mancunian Buccaneers or something like that it's called. I've gone, sadly, Man United 2, Tottenham 1. Because of the worser evils. Basically, Monday night, 8 o'clock, Bournemouth versus Southampton, South Coast derby. Having won the
Are we doing this one, Ferg? Because you missed it off the list before.
I did miss it off the list. Only because I was the one who listen, don't you start, right?
Was that Fergus?
Having won that. Listen, you're the guy who wanted us to lose in the League Cup. So let's just
take that hook.
Just leave. Listen, I got you flapping around on a hook proper on Monday night. If anybody wants to look at last Monday night show, and I think what was it about? It's about 40 minutes into it. Oh, he was seething when we hung up at the end of it. Oh, the words that came out of that young man's mouth. I've never heard such words in my life. He called me.
That's the closest I've been on air to calling you some other words, mate. I'll tell you what. Saying that I wanted my team to lose, never. There is only one of us that went to that game, so you can take your rod and sit on it.
Yeah, okay. Having won the first Premier League against Southampton in March 2016, Bournemouth are now winless in 5 games against the Saints at the Vitality Stadium, drawing 2 and losing 3. Dan, hopefully we'll get to go to Bournemouth ourselves. I've not been to Bournemouth. I know you've been a couple of times, but it's a tight little stadium, creates a cracking little atmosphere if the game is going their way. Southampton, their manager is very committed to playing his style of football and playing good football, but it's costing them dearly. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Firstly, Bournemouth, I think Vitality Stadium's a cracking little stadium. I quite like it there. It's one of my favourite away trips, if I'm honest. Every single season we go there, a new song breaks out. And yeah, very much looking forward to going there again this season. But aside from that, they're a good side, Bournemouth. And I think they've done well even since selling Solanke. And even though Evan Nilsson's not really settled fantastically so far, I think they still look like a decent side. And they're playing against a side who I think are just going to be a little bit naive. It's great to watch. It's nice to see teams come up and give it a go. But we saw it with Burnley last year that it just doesn't work in this league. The difference in quality between the Premier League and the Championship is just too big. And you have to establish yourself in this league before you can start to play that way. And you've seen teams like Brentford come up and what they've done to establish themselves. And I feel like Southampton need to get in that sort of mode a bit quicker and not leave it to the last 5 or 6 games like Burnley did if they want to have a chance of staying up in this league. Because in all honesty, I hope they do, because I hope Ramsdale has a good run, and I hope he gets what he deserves and has some good games and stays in the Prem. But I just can't see it at the minute. I just think they're a poor side, Southampton. They're near enough like a little fish trying to play football in a big league, and I think they're out their depth. So I've gone for a 2-1 win to Bournemouth. I think Southampton a battle. I think they'll try, but it wouldn't surprise me if they make another mistake, and that's how Bournemouth score.
Yeah, Southampton winless in the last 18 Premier League games, drawing 5, losing 13. Different managers, I know. They had a good time in the Championship. Maybe that's the level they're at. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine at work, is a Southampton fan, and he was actually happy when they went down, only because he was sick of seeing them lose all the time, and it was nice to go to football and watch them challenge and try and win games. Trevor, are they good enough to challenge and beat Bournemouth on their own ground?
No, I don't think they are. It's a South Coast derby, so it'll be fired up a bit. They're not keen on each other, the two teams, I don't think. But I just can't get Ramsdale out of my head. I feel really sorry for him, because I think he's in real danger of suffering another relegation. And I don't think Aaron Ramsdale deserves that. I think he's a better player than to suffer these relegations. But I do worry about him, because Southampton are not going very well, and I can't see him challenging Bournemouth this weekend at all. The only thing that's going to keep it close is that it's a South Coast derby. Both sets of players should be right up for it, and that might narrow the score difference a little bit. But I've gone for Bournemouth to beat Southampton 2-1. But I really hope I'm wrong in a way, because I want to see Aaron Ramsdale not be relegated.
Yeah, I've gone for Bournemouth win. Just a tight fixture. I can't see it being more than 1-0, so I've gone 1-0 for Bournemouth on that one. Well, that's it for all the games that don't matter. The only game that does matter is 3:00, Emirates Stadium, N5, the only place to be. Arsenal versus Leicester City. Arsenal have won their last 5 Premier League games against Leicester. Their joint longest winning run against the Foxes in their history, also 5 between 1908 and 1914, and also between 1930 and 1932. Trevor, which of those windows? It was 1930-32 you were at, wasn't it?
Sorry, you'd bored me after a couple of words, so I didn't hear what you said, Ferg. I wasn't listening. I was too busy thinking about being back at the Emirates this Saturday for a 3:00 kickoff, which is not the first one we've had this year, so it's special, you know. We should beat Leicester, shouldn't we? But there's a few, and our record against Leicester's fine. There's a few little things that just make me think a little bit. Like Vardy loves scoring a goal against the Arsenal. Ever since he turned us down, he's loved scoring a goal against the Arsenal. I can remember a few seasons ago, once or twice, Leicester come and give us a really hard game at the Emirates. We've pulled through at the end. I can remember us winning 4-3 with a late goal, you know. So they'll give us a game, Leicester. But if we turn up, then I can't see us being in any danger, surely. You look at every position on the pitch and you think, here we go, you know, we're just a better side. And it's getting a bit of a habit, this, with Fergus, Dan, isn't it? Disappearing off to the washroom after about 44, 45 minutes, Dan, you know, that he goes. I reckon he's got a limit.
I think that's how long the plasters last around his bag, Trev. So yeah, they probably has to be changed every now and again. But yeah, I suppose when you get to that age, it does happen, doesn't it? Poor old lad.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't suffer with that problem. But you know, it can't be helped. He's getting on a bit, and so he's going to suffer a bit like that. But no, Dan, do you know what? As much as I think about this game, I try and make a case, as I just said, for Leicester giving us a game. Yeah, they have pushed us close in recent years at times. Yeah, Vardy loves scoring a goal against the Arsenal, but I can't see him getting near us. Can you, mate?
I don't think it's just us as Arsenal fans, Trev. I genuinely think that we are now the best team in the league. And I think anyone that's looking at this game won't be thinking anything other than Arsenal win. So we've just got to do what we need to do. The team selection perhaps could be a bit of a sort of tricky thing, of depending on what happens, because there's talks of Raya maybe being a question mark over the game. So could Neto make his first appearance for the club? We've got decisions to make in the position with Trossard and maybe Ranieri after last night's performance, and then a few little performances up top. Who do you start? if Trossard comes in the middle. So a few selection questions. We don't know if Ben White's fit. Not really heard much on Timber as well. So I know Arteta likes to keep things a bit more questionable in the media, but I'll tell you what it also does. It makes me nervous as an Arsenal fan because you never really know who's fit and who's not with Arteta. So interesting to see what team we put out. But if I'm totally honest, whatever team we put out, I think we're good enough to be beating this Leicester team by quite a few goals.
I've just got something I need to pick up with you there, Dan, because you said we don't know if Raya is still injured, if he's injured. But come on, last week he was just laying on the floor pretending to be injured, weren't he, and wasting time. Come on, we've got stick off of journalists for that. We've got stick off of other teams' fans, not just City, other teams' fans. We've got stick off from all corners for Raya going down injured and wasting time. It's disgraceful, isn't it?
I don't know. Those dark arts, they must make you miss games as well, Trev.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe that's what it was. The dark arts knocked him down, yeah.
2 seconds, Trevor. I thought I had caught Hente out on a fact, because I had a fact on here saying Leicester have won just one of the last 26 away games to Arsenal, drawing 4 and losing 21, picking up a 1-0 victory in October 2020. And Hente had said Arsenal lost the game in front of a crowd in 1973. But it was COVID and there was no crowd then there. So well done, Hente. What a great pub quiz question that one is. Absolutely brilliant. And by the way, no, I didn't have to empty a bag or anything else. I've got a stinking bloody cold. I sneezed and I had to go and wash my hands. So it's just being polite and stopping spreading germs.
He's got stuff in his hands and changing that bag again, and you poor old soul.
You flipping idiots. Look, Arsenal have won 16 of the last 17 Premier League games against promoter sides, with the exception of Nottingham Forest in May 2023, when we lost 1-0. At home, the Gunners are unbeaten in 39 such games, winning 34, drawing 5, and since a loss to Newcastle in November 2010. Trevor, what's your thoughts on this one then?
Well, just picking up from what Dan says there, and I love this about Arteta. I love the fact that Arteta doesn't even give us a hint, really, of what he's going to do, who's going to play and who's going to do what. And I love that. He doesn't let us know who's injured. So it really is simply guesswork, isn't it? It really is. If I'm honest, is Trossard okay now? Did he serve his ban last night, did he?
I believe so. I believe he did, and he should hopefully be available.
Yep. So
he's available because it's a league cup and it's all league.
Although who knows, because that normally applies to everyone else, but to us it may not apply. So you never know with rules these days, do you?
So if we've got Trossard, Havertz, Martinelli, Saka, all fit, Nwaneri doesn't start for me in that side. So we pick 3 from 4 there with the other one on the bench. And then the midfield picks itself, Rice and Partey, doesn't it? And then the back 4, or the only question mark is around the right back. I love to see Ben White at right back. There's no way Ben White deserves to not play in this team. But then you look at how well Timber played, and you look at Calafiori hitting the ground running, and you think, wow, look at the options we've got, look at the options we've got. So it's simply guesswork, but I would think that to start this game, if White's fit, he'll play right back with our 2 regular centre-backs and maybe Timber at left, and we'll see Calafiori at some stage of the game.
Well, we have to think of rotation as well to a certain degrees. Like, if Neto does get a game and then we keep Raya back for the PSG game, because we've got Champions League again midweek, and then we got Southampton the week afterwards. Arsenal as well. You have to remember, most of the time we're playing against 12. And I don't know where the referee, I don't know which referee it is, but they probably brought a referee in from the Midlands this time rather than one from the Northwest when we're playing the team from the Northwest. Arsenal received 6 cards, 4 yellows and 2 second yellows for either time wasting or not retreating in the Premier League, 2 more than any other club. They received 3 cards just at Man City the last time out. Let's open that can of worms a little bit, because
before we move too far on to the weekend's game, I know you wasn't bothered about it. night and you didn't turn up last night, Ferg. But some of us turn up and some of us cared about the
No,
game.
no, no. I want to talk about that game as well. So I was just we'll finish off on our predictions.
I was going to say, anyone from last night, have they put themselves in the hat for the weekend? Anyone maybe that surprised you performance-wise?
I thought Nanweri was outstanding, getting a brace. I thought Lewis Skelly was also very, very good. I thought the keeper did what he needed to do. He was unlucky with the goal, but you could see his age and his inexperience. But you know what I really did love about what that team did was how Jorginho played in that game. Jorginho, when I think Porter, the keeper, struggled with the first couple of interactions with some Bolton players. And also the instruction came from the bench, and then Jorginho passed it down and said, no, we're playing the ball long. Get the pressure away from him. And then I saw again at half time, Jorginho gathering everybody on the together to make sure they're all together to come back on the pitch at the second half. I thought his leadership in that game was absolutely outstanding. Sterling looked, there was a couple of idiots on Twitter calling him out, but I thought Sterling looked really bright. If you're asking if I wanted any of the young kids to break through, if we're winning, then Lewis Skelly to get a bit of time, and Nanweri, I'd consider starting him depending on who's fit and who's not.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis Skelly and if Manieri's already on the edge of the squad, right? So I sort of expected them to do what they did, but honestly, I'm a bit shocked of how well some of the other guys did, if I'm honest. I mean, Jack Porter is a 16-year-old in goal. You think about it, a few weeks ago, he was at school and he was playing within Year 11 versus Year 10 football. And now he's come out, he's playing at the Emirates Stadium. So for people to say he looked nervous, I'm not bloody surprised. Like, I thought he looked less nervous than what I'd expect him to be, if that makes sense. And then the same with Josh Nichols at right back. You could say he looked shaky. I think he did at bits, but I'm not surprised. I thought they settled him really, really well. And I do think they showed the difference in level between them two and the other two guys that we mentioned, because you can see the guys that have been training with the first team for a long time, and you can see the gap in that level. But those two positions that they played last night, right back and left back, and the way they come inside, and they're two massive, massive positions for the way we set up tactically, and they had a lot of the ball. So I'm not surprised that maybe they looked a bit nervous considering how much of the ball they had as well in those positions. But the biggest standout for me was last night was sitting there watching Gabriel Jesus, and I think he's a great player in the build-up, but he doesn't show any purpose of trying to get in the box. And that was a little bit frustrating last night watching him. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. He hasn't really got the urgency to get in the box. And I honestly feel like his future at the club is wide rather than up top. I can't see how he's going to challenge Havertz up top. So, yeah, a bit disappointed there, I think. But I agree with Jorginho. I think him... He's a great player that you can bring in and out of the squad for these sort of games, and maybe he's pushing on the door if Partey's got a little niggle at all.
Yeah, just finishing up on the Leicester game, I predicted 4-0 win to Arsenal. But now, Trevor, we'll get both your predictions as well. But going on to the Bolton game, Bolton were seasoned football players. They'd been around the block, a few of them.
Well, it's really interesting, Ferg, that you make that point. Firstly, just before we go on, Gary Walls just dropped us a message that his lad Jack is into our show. So nice to have you along for the ride, Jack. I hope you enjoy the show, mate. And if Fergus swears, he doesn't really mean it, okay? But I hope you're enjoying it, mate. And,
it's only because Trevor and Dan drive me to it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it normally.
Yeah, and Jack, if you can put your favourite podcaster in the chat, Jack. Daniel spelt Daniel.
And listen, Jack, you don't take sides if you don't want to, mate. You just enjoy the show. And Gary, hopefully we might see you at the weekend. Listen, get back to this Bolton game last night. I found it really interesting. Firstly, we don't want Jorginho being the last man again, do we? He was left wanting for pace a little bit, but we can shake that off. I immediately thought to myself, we've got two young fullbacks left and right, and we're playing a typical League One side. Big defenders. And I was a bit worried about how we'd go from set pieces. But I thought that the older players in the team looked after the younger players from the set pieces, and we lined up really well, and they didn't get anywhere near scoring from a set piece. But then I want to stick on the subject of this is where I think Arteta, this is where I value Arteta, because I would never have thought with this. I could never be a coach. But I think Arteta got the tactics exactly right last night, because from where I was, I don't know how he looks in the ground, Dan, but we played balls over the top, but not long balls over the top. Not long balls over the top. Just we'd get 2/3 into their half, and we'd stick a ball over the top just behind their defenders, because he'd seen that their defenders were big fellas and they weren't going to turn anywhere near as quick to stop our lads running through onto the ball. And we kept so much possession from that last night. I thought it was really simple, but really genius. And we kept doing it time after time. There was nothing Bolton could do about it, because they simply weren't good enough defenders. So I was really pleased with that. And I was really pleased with the outcome. We scored some goals from them balls as well, crossing. Saka got to the line once and pulled it back, and I can't remember the others. But yeah, I thought it was a brilliant performance from the young lads and the older lads, and from Mikel Arteta, who's making a habit of getting tactics right in games.
It did make me laugh last night, because obviously I messaged you guys in the 67th minute and said, I haven't heard a single "what do you think of Tottenham" chant so far. And lo and behold, 68th minute started, and then it went off about 8 or 9 in a row. But we actually, there wasn't too many of it last night. And I even heard some sort of Rocky Road Castle chants and things going. And
I heard that. I heard the Tottenham one was about 22 minutes the first time I heard it. The telly, they're moving around a little bit. But yeah, I did hear the Rocky Road Castle one as well.
Yeah. I think you're just starting to see a lot of people that are just really enthusiastic to get to games, and obviously have not been able to get to games. And those cup games do give those guys opportunities as well to get there, and also chances for the youth players like this to shine. So,
and Trevor, some of us aren't greedy. We give those people the opportunity. Isn't that it?
Yeah, whatever you're talking about, I wasn't listening again. Sorry. Well, have we done scores yet for Arsenal Leicester?
I went 4-0, but you guys have to give yours.
Right. I'm going to be. Do you want me to go first, Dan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, ladies first, always.
Okay, my dear. I've gone a very, very conservative 2-0 to the Arsenal. If it's not more than 2-0, I'll be disappointed. But something's telling me 2-0, so that's where I've headed.
I've gone 3-0, and I'm hoping for more, because I think it's about time this season we start scoring a few more goals, and I'm really hoping it starts to click. So yeah, at least 3, but I've gone 3-0.
I think that was the really good thing about last night as well, that we actually got some goals, because we did look like we were struggling sometimes to get some goals away from set pieces.
But Fergus, if we get the 0 in the end for the rest of this season, we only need to nick 1. So loving the boys in the back of the minute.
Boring.
We'll take that all game.
Okay, guys, that's us. But before we go, we have a lovely comment in here from Bargav. I'm taking it as Bargav. Big up to your history shows. We have got a various playlists in there. Myself, Trevor, Mark and Andy. Mark and Andy are from the Arsenal Arsenal history. They've written the Arsenal collection. They've written several books about Arsenal, from Woolwich to the Emirates. And he picked us up from those on YouTube. So if you do want to look at them, it's about 10 hours. It's really, really interesting. I learned some stuff right through the war and stuff like that. And thanks for following us on. Yeah, really, really nice to see that. Thanks very much. Yeah, thanks, Trevor, I can see you shaking your head. You've clearly got some Trevor time. We should get some music, shouldn't we?
Right. I've had a really interesting few days on social media. I've been looking at the fallout from the City game, and I've not gone on social media with anything about the City game today, but I've given it some thought and how we're doing. And listen, right, Man City and these other fans, they didn't get upset. Their coach, their players, their fans, they didn't get upset because we defended all second half. They didn't get upset because of time wasted. They didn't get upset because our players got injured. They didn't even get upset because we got a player sent off. They'll say they did, but they didn't. What they got upset, right? Because they went 1-0 up, right? Are you done?
Yeah. Carry on. Just carry on. You just keep talking. You're good at that.
Are you done? Listen.
My wife's got through the menopause. When are you going to get through yours?
Man City fans got upset, right? And this is a serious point. You can fucking laugh all you want, right? Sorry, right? But we've made a massive point, right? They went 1-0 up and they thought that we were going to capitulate. Like every team played there in years has capitulated. Man City go 1-0 up, and that's the end of the game. And they thought that was the end of the game, right? But not only did we not capitulate, we played better after they went 1-0 up, and we equalised. And it wasn't a lucky equaliser. And then we scored again, right? And we've gone 2-0 up, 2-1 up, and Haaland scored early, right? The first time the best striker in the world in 4 matches against the Arsenal has got a sniff of a goal, and he's took it, right? But Gabriel and Saliba said, no more. You ain't getting no more. And he didn't get another sniff throughout the game, and that's why he spat his dummy out, you know. Man City haven't been challenged like that for years. You know, they've spat their dummies up for the reason that a team was as good, if not better than them, and stood up against them. They're bullies. They're bullies, and they're not used to being stood up to. And we stood up to them, and we were so unlucky. I mean, when did you last see Pep Guardiola kicking the furniture? Never. I can't remember it.
You know, the last time I saw a manager get such violence on a touchline, he kicked a water bottle and he was ousted to the stands and given a red card. Special treatment for Pep.
I'm telling you now, Pep Guardiola was kicking that furniture because he'd been out-coached in the second half by Mikel Arteta. They didn't expect Mikel Arteta to stick a bank of 4 and a bank of 5 there and say, we'll play deep against you. They didn't expect that, Man City. And even if they did expect it, they thought they'd beat that easily. They thought they'd come, you know, they would get round us somehow. And they did, right? But they expected us to fall apart, and we didn't, right? We were beaten by a lucky 98th minute goal, right? A lucky 98th minute goal. It was one of the most superb defensive, right, 53 minutes of football I've ever seen. It wasn't perfect because we let a goal in at the end. But Man City, trust me, they got put firmly in their places by that second half performance from the Arsenal. And the only reason they got put firmly in their places is because we were as good as them, and we were out coached by Arteta over Pep, and we got players good enough to play that game. And just to finish off, right, these fans that have been on our backs all week, these City fans and other fans, but particularly the City fans, right? These wonderful City fans that have supported their club for years. They're 2-1 down, right, with 5 minutes to go, and they're on the front foot like they've been all through the game. What were the City fans doing? Let me tell you what the City fans were doing. They were leaving the ground in their thousands. They were leaving
84 minutes. We were singing, "Is there a fire drill?"
They were leaving the ground in their thousands. When at any other club on the planet, if you're 2-1 down and you're the supposed best side in the world and you're pressing for a goal, that stadium don't empty. That stadium don't empty. But I'm telling you for now, that stadium was what, a fifth empty when they scored that equaliser, because their fans had gone home, weren't interested. And that sums City up for us. And I love it. We're back. We are boiling piss, right? And I love it. And I'm not going to say any more, because you've done me head in Fergus and you've done me head in Dan. And I'm never having Trev time again on this show. But one thing I will say, and I must remind people, suck it up, all this stick, right? Because we're going to get it all season, because that's how it used to be. That's how it used to be. Everyone hates the Arsenal. But should we care? Of course we don't care.
And
every week, shit referees.
Which sums up really as well, doesn't it? Every week, referees. Listen, and on that point, just to finish up, because we are going to close. We've got in that there was Ollie. What's Ollie Holt, the journalist, moaning about Arsenal fans being salty on social media and everything else, saying that it shouldn't be a yellow card and this, that, and the other. Trevor put a great response to his tweet, and I put one in as well, and a few other people did as well. And it wasn't about a yellow card, whether it was justified or not justified. It wasn't about, whether, the dark arts were involved. It was about consistency. What we were asking for all the time is that stat that I gave, that we've received 6 yellow cards, 4 first yellows and 2 second yellows for either time waste or not retreating. It's not happening to more than any other club. I know it's only 6 games in.
These journalists, right? I'm never rude to journalists.
No.
Because they have the power to put me firmly in my place if they want to, right? But there's nothing wrong with stating a fact to journalists. And they love to get on the Arsenal's back, especially Northwest-based journalists like Oliver Holt. They can't be seen to not being on the Arsenal back. That's their bread and butter. And after that game on the weekend, when we drew 2-2, a lot of journalists had to find a reason to get on the back of the Arsenal. So they started inventing them. And as I just said, Man City fans, players, manager, supporters, executives, directors, they weren't upset because we had a player sent off. They weren't upset because we time wasted. They weren't upset because we went down injured. They were upset because we stood up against the bullies, and they don't like being stood up against. We were the better side. When we want 1-1 with 11 men, be serious, boys, because I'll be serious with you. I could only see one team winning the game. When we come back from 1-0 down, made it 1-0, I thought we win this game now. I was confident we would win that game. Confident. When we went 2-1, I'm thinking, here we go. We'll win this more than 2-1. Then, of course, we get a player sent off. And when you're playing against the best team in the world, you have to think of a tactic to play against them with 10 men. And Arteta done that, and he was so unlucky. So unlucky.
The thing you're forgetting, though, Trev, the clubs over the years that have benefited from decisions are from Manchester. Most referees are from Manchester. And that particular journalist you mentioned is from Manchester. That's where he was born. It's not a coincidence. So I think we suck it up. We move on. We keep smiling. We are the Arsenal. We love what we do. We love our club. We love the fact that everyone else hates us. And it will make the victory at the end so much more sweeter.
Final little story, Trev. Come on.
Sorry, folks. Sorry, Dan. You see, Dan, you're right? But I've started sitting back now and thinking, look, right, the PGMOL are untouchable, right? What's his name? The main man there, the PGMOL, they think they're untouchable.
Webb.
What other function in the world would make a man referee a game that lives 10 minutes from the ground? You know, even if Oliver isn't partial to Man City, which I've got my question marks about, they don't care because they've got no comeback. The PGMOL are not answering to anybody. Well, not that we know of, you know. So they just do as they please. So I've started looking now for other ways of starting to highlight the issues, right? So I'm looking at the clubs, the managers, and most of all, I'm looking at how brilliant our manager is. You know, you can't think about it for too long because it infuriates me.
There, of course. Arnie's picked up Trev time number 2. I thought it was Trev time number about 4 or 5. Listen, I was going to say something else, but you threw me off completely. Listen, we're back Monday night, 7 o'clock, following the Leicester game. Before we go, let's have a bit of this. Some faces in there, boys, isn't there? Some faces.
I love that clip. There's a few miles been travelled by that group.
Yes, I can tell you. Yeah, that is over land, sea, and Leicester. Listen, enjoy the game wherever you're watching. Everybody, enjoy. If you're from another team and you're watching us, I hope you enjoyed the show. And have a good weekend. Arsenal are boiling piss since 1886 up the Arsenal.
You see, is Newcastle the early game, Fergus? Is it Newcastle City the early game?
Trev time part 4. Yes, it is.
So I'm just making a statement. If there's any City fans looking in after Newcastle have took them apart and they want to see a real football team that puts Man City in their place, tune into the Arsenal game at 3:00. You'll see a good football team.
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.